Our general human rights. You should have the right to see somebody you love.
Exactly.
You should have, if you're in a nursing facility, you should be able to get a telephone call. And you should be able to open your mail.
Correspondence.
And those are just things that we don't think about that you think just obviously as a child, you should be able to go see your parent.
Welcome to Life's Third Act, an enlightening look at estate planning, retirement, and beyond. Joining us now is someone all too familiar with being separated from a family member, a famous father-in-law and father. With us now is Trudy Campbell, the wife of Travis Campbell. Travis is here as well, the son of the late country artist Glen Campbell. So we welcome you all to the show. I know this isn't your first time being with us, but we really want to talk to you again and revisit what was happening once your father and father-in-law was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2011. At the time, he was married to his fourth wife, Kim. And just tell us a little bit more about your relationship at that time when all of that was happening.
Well, I'll let Travis tell that part since that's his father. So, go ahead and tell what
basically,
happened.
at that time, Dad lived in Los Angeles. And then he lived in Malibu, and I lived in Kansas, just south of Wichita. People ask me why I moved here, and I say I moved here to look for that lineman guy, Dad used to sing about. but anyway, like when we would be playing golf, Dad always told jokes. But when we would be playing golf, he would tell me the same joke 2 or 3 times during the round, and I could tell, something was kind of
off, yeah.
But then I didn't really know. I didn't really find out about it at the Alzheimer's diagnosis until they came out with it publicly.
Yeah, usually, there's signs, but you don't ever want to really think about it because you forget your keys. These things happen with Alzheimer's. And then it, like you said, it just gets worse. You notice some things are off. But once he was officially diagnosed with it, can you kind of tell us a little bit more about how your relationship changed a little bit?
It was kind of tough. I highly suggest if you have things you want to tell your parents or a loved one, tell it to them now, because there was a lot of things that I had in my life. Just from things growing up. Nothing critical, but just things that I had in my mind that I would have wanted to talk to my dad about. Whereas, before it was either his business manager, don't bother Dad with that, just leave him be, don't bother him with that. And then when it got to a point in my life to where there were things that I wanted to talk to him about, he was in the place to where he wasn't really cognizant of things, and I couldn't really talk to him about that. So that's one thing that I regret, that I didn't talk to him about things that I wanted to prior to him becoming uncognizant. But once that took place to where he wasn't cognizant, and my stepmom Kim kind of took over every aspect of his life, it changed a lot. The relationship definitely changed a lot because he wasn't in control of his own life anymore. And then basically that kind of led us to these bills that we passed to where we weren't able to see Dad in the memory care facility. And then what ended up happening is Rusty Crowe and Carrie Kasem. Rusty Crowe was the state senator, and Catherine Falk. But Carrie Kasem was incredibly helpful with us to get these bills passed and give us advice, because she had gone through the same thing with her father, as well as Kelly Rooney, Mickey Rooney's daughter, was part of Kasem Cares. They're on the board with us.
And it was something that you and your sister also did together. Now, your sister, she's your stepsister, Debbie. Right. The two of you, I guess, you started talking and you noticed what was going on with your dad, as well as how, I guess, neither one of you were able to see your dad. And what about the rest of your siblings, too?
One of the big things, which with Debbie and with Travis, when you think about it, and Debbie had been on the road with her father, and they had a very best friend relationship, and you think of 25 years together, being on the road, traveling together, and the same band, and then all of Glen's familiarity, it was stripped from him. Debbie was fired. She found out when she was going to London. She was called and told her services would no longer be needed. Debbie tried to show up. She couldn't see her dad at the shows. His band was fired. So how long did the tour go on? It was like 2 years.
This farewell tour.
So that farewell tour had went on that long. Well, Travis, anytime he tried to go to a show of his dad's show, and he couldn't get back to see his dad. And same way with Debbie.
Especially Debbie, because Debbie's the one that used to let people backstage.
Yeah.
And then when she went to some of the final farewell tours, they wouldn't allow her to go backstage. But that's basically what prompted us to get involved with the state senators.
Well, and the biggest thing that started was, you would think, now if you think about it, okay, our human rights, you should have the right to see somebody you love.
Exactly.
You should have, if you're in a nursing facility, you should be able to get a telephone call and you should be able to open your mail.
Correspondence.
And those are just things that we don't think about, that you think just obviously as a child, you should be able to go see your parent.
As long as you're not a detriment.
Right.
Anyway, yeah.
And so I knew, and I had never really been involved in anything like that. And I found it, I was like shocked when Travis and Debbie could not go in to see their dad. I seen how devastated they were. I seen Glenn, how he hugged Debbie, how he hugged Travis, how he wanted to see them. And to have somebody tell you, no, he don't need visitors today. I was shocked. I really didn't know what to do. So, and I seen both Debbie and Travis, how upset they were. I mean, how devastated they were in hiring lawyers. They didn't know exactly what to do as far as with the lawyer. What do you do? What kind of lawsuit do you do? What do you do to get in to see your dad? Well, that's when they were saying, well, the law is, okay. I started calling and I talked to Campbell-Falk. And Campbell-Falk, who's Peter Falk's daughter, had told me, she said, I've been trying to get a hold of the senators in Tennessee to change some laws. And here's the telephone number. So I started calling Rusty Crowe. And in the meantime, I also got a hold of Carrie Kasem. That's how her and I met.
And that's Casey Kasem's daughter. What a case that has been. Have they found their father's body?
Yeah.
Okay, they did. Okay.
In Sweden, I believe it's buried in Sweden.
Okay.
Scandinavia.
Okay.
Somewhere.
That story is crazy. Yeah.
Somewhere
heartbreaking.
Isn't that insane? Who would think that would happen?
Yeah.
But what ended up happening is when I talked to Senator Crowe, prior to that, literally, he's like, how many days? How long has it been since they seen their dad? I said, it's been like 2 months right now, because she's saying it's in mediation, and unless they settle, they can't see their dad. Here's the emails.
Either we dropped it and we could see him, or we settled.
Yeah. So I showed the Senate the emails and I said, here's what's happened. And it was one of those things. They said, we've got to do something like fast, because Glenn's in this nursing home. They might not ever get to see him alive again. That was how all of this legislation started. And since that time, we passed that law. There's some other things in the law, but they got taken out. Our main things was to make sure that if you love somebody and you're put in a nursing home, you have the right to see that person. As long as they're not a detriment to you, and as long as a judge don't say it's a detriment to you, you have the right to see that person.
Visitation,
you have the right.
Telephone calls, and correspondence.
Yes,
mail. Yeah.
Those, and so they passed that. They passed the bill. And then when Travis and Debbie went to see their dad, this was, I think, 2 days after the bill had passed, the nursing home wouldn't let Debbie in. It was Debbie, and she'd taken one of Glenn's good friends, and they wouldn't let her in. So I called Senator Crowe, called him again, and I said, hey, they're not letting them in. He says, hold on. So he then faxed over a copy of the new bill that was put into, Tennessee law. And then that's how Debbie had got in to see her dad. And then after that, I started telling him kind of what had happened with Travis's mother, with Billie Jean Campbell, and her trust, and where did all her money go. Now, Billie Jean wasn't an elder, but it kind of went along
That's
the
my
same.
mom.
Yeah,
My
Billie Jean Campbell was Travis's mom.
But
it was kind
Glenn's
of the
second
same
wife.
line.
Correct.
Right.
She was with him during all the hits. They moved from Albuquerque to LA together.
Yeah. And so I had told Senator Crowe, I started sending him over the documents of what had happened to all Billie's money. I said, you know what, if there's any kind of laws that we can pass in Tennessee, because you wouldn't believe how many elderly people are having this happen to them. Because after working with Carrie Kasem, and we go around the country with the Kasem Cares Foundation, and we pass bills. And Travis can tell you a little more about that.
We would testify at state legislatures, regarding bills, to try to pass that were similar to the bill in Tennessee. We also went to Washington, D.C. to try to get it, passed federally. That hasn't worked yet, but we're still working on it. And she's an incredible advocate for elder abuse rights. It's not just like a stepmom or this. There are conservators that are appointed by the court that are very unscrupulous as well,
A lot of it's family members, though. It's a lot of people that it's close to, an elderly person. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, we did the show with Billie Jean. Okay. And asking what happened to Billie's
previous episode.
And what happened to Billie Jean's money. And when you go through, literally elderly people have this happen because Billie had got sick and was, dying of cancer.
She died from breast cancer.
So it's almost, that's a vulnerable adult there as well.
Yes.
And you're looking at assets that had been taken from her, but then on through the years after she passed. But really the whole thing, the laws that passed after the bill that was in 2015, I think is when the Campbell-Falk bill was passed. The laws that have passed after that, a lot of that have been on financial exploitation of an elder.
You all started it. I mean, you have fought so hard. You had the Campbell-Falk Act.
Carrie, though, too.
2016.
Carrie, in California, Carrie did, an immense job of that. And then one thing I want to say is one of her key things that she says, which is so true: isolate, medicate, steal the estate. They isolate them, they medicate them, and then they try to take the money.
Well, money does crazy things to people, and they get really greedy. And let's face it, your father, he had such a wonderful career going all the way back to playing with Elvis Presley.
Yeah, so
I mean, he had lots of stuff,
Yep. One thing I want to say, though, people say that money changes you. I disagree. I think money reveals your true character.
Yes, I would say that as well. And sadly, you've had to deal with some characters that weren't so nice.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
And
I was shocked, though.
And then
how did
you meet Venetia, sweetie?
I met Venetia. Venetia had emailed me and had sent me emails. And then I had started talking to her. And actually, it was from the Kasem Cares, some of the bills that we had passed. And when I started talking to her and getting her story, I looked and I was like, I think there's some bills in Tennessee that we've already passed because I work with Senator Crow, and there's some bills that could possibly help you with this whole quest of what's happening with your father. And so that's how her and I met. She started telling me a lot of the stories, and she sent me over a lot of the police reports that was filed, and then the high-speed car chases.
Yes.
And did you hear about all this?
Yes, we saw the rap sheets, and it was quite shocking, all the different things that were going on. But Trudy, how it's wonderful of you to be so open to, talk to those who are kind of going through the same thing, because there's a lot of similarities with Venetia and you. It's the fourth wife, I believe, for both.
Yes. Yes.
And I must say, I am so blessed to have Trudy in my life. I mean, not just as my partner, but as my best friend. It was because of her that all of this got rolling, all of it. Mm-hmm. I had a heart attack back in 2014. And it's
did you hear about this?
No.
Everything that's been rolling. I mean, there's a video. It's called "The Day I Died." I didn't have oxygen to my brain for over 20 minutes. I was on life support. The doctor was telling them that they should pull the plug on me because I had no brain activity. Some people think I still don't, but that's a different story. But no, seriously, Trudy said, let him rest, let him sleep. And eventually I came out of it. It's solely due to Trudy about all of this. I mean, the legislation, everything that's going on is all due to her.
Well, and it's just grown so much. So you started out with the Campbell-Falk Act that happened in 2016. Sadly, you lost your father and father-in-law in 2017. But 2017 was also a year that another law was enacted. So can you tell us more about that?
Well, that was the financial exploitation law. And actually, I really like the looks of this, because if somebody has taken a vulnerable adult, and if you think about it, They don't have the mental capacity sometimes, and they call it undue influence or diminished mental capacity. But the undue influence is more like somebody has swayed them to make a financial change, and usually for the betterment of, whoever is the conservator or the person that's in their life. And the reason why I felt like that the 2017 law really affected Venetia is it's a perfect example. And I like to give examples on a lot of things. For example, when an elderly person has wrote a lot of songs and they have it in publishing, they love their publishing, but that's their money that's coming in. A year before Don Everly passed away, he gifted all of his publishing rights to a sister-in-law. All right. Then he also gifted his house. Now let's say if he lived another 12 years, what would happen? How's he going to support himself if you give all of your financial assets? And would that person have done that had they been 25, 35 years old and of clear mental capacity? Would they give away their house? Would they give away all their publishing rights? Usually no. And that's one of the things which we felt like people needed to be protected so that they don't have that happen. Because otherwise, I've seen a lot of cases, believe it or not, just in working with Kasem Cares, well, somebody will give everything that they own away, then they're like left homeless. They're like left living in a low-class nursing home that they can't even afford to be there, and the state's paying for it. So when you think about that, it really kind of puts that law into perspective. And what that law states is if somebody takes an elderly person's money, their financial means, their assets, that the district attorneys can prosecute them, they can freeze their assets in the same equal amount or more to pay back the victim. And I thought that was a great law. I think it needs to be known a little more. That
Definitely.
There's a lot more bite now. If you're going to, take somebody that's diminished mental capacity, if you're going to take their assets, that there's going to be consequences.
Yes.
There's going to be jail time. And I like that law. I thought that was a good law. The thing I think with even the first law, which we had passed with the, just being able to see a parent or loved one get a phone call, get their mail. I felt like that we'll probably go back and change some things because that needs to have a little more bite to it, like a more of a criminal penalty to it, that if it happens, the person needs to have consequences for it. Because could you imagine, being in a nursing home and not being able to see your kids?
And especially when it comes to Alzheimer's, usually with them, they remember further in their past than they do just a few days ago. So,
yes.
Travis, you obviously were in your father's life way before Kim.
Sure.
Right.
So you would think that just for peace of mind for your dad, he would want to see, as far back in his history as he possibly could.
Sure. See, when we see Glenn, he'd talk, he'd say, Where's your mom? Where's Billy?
Yeah.
Where's Billy?
Kind of funny. And towards the end, when because like I said, we had visitation for 4 hours at a time, twice a month. But when we would go down there, it's an 11-hour drive for us to go to Nashville. But we would go down there, and again, I had mentioned that Trudy wasn't allowed to go in, so she had to stay in the car. But when I would be sitting there with Dad, he'd kind of be off in like La La Land. But what would happen is you'd be looking at him, and for those of you that have family members that have Alzheimer's, you'd be sitting there and you're kind of staring at them in the eye, and all of a sudden he would like click, and he'd like look, and he'd look at me, and it's like, I sure love you, son. That right there, I just get chill bumps even recounting that. That's just it's unbelievable.
And with more and more people getting Alzheimer's, our baby boomers, our biggest generation. I think this is wonderful what you all have done because it's going to help so many other families who, may be suffering from Alzheimer's, a family member, whether there's divorce in there, other, wives or whatnot. But for the kids to be able to see those parents when they're having, the situation with Alzheimer's, you are helping these families. And I just want to say thank you for that because in my past, I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's. So, but everything was fine with my family. We all got to see Grandma. It was all fine.
Well, you was able to see her.
Oh,
and talk to her.
Mm-hmm. Much
So
different
you know what
situation.
I mean? Like sitting there with them, and they're kind of in la la land. But every now and then they'll have moments of clarity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my grandmother, she didn't recognize her husband. She'd be like, they knew each other as kids, so she knew him, but she didn't realize she was married to him, and she would like get the giggles when she was like, "That's my husband."
Oh, that's kind of, so she thought of him like when they was younger.
So yeah, it's very very difficult, very very. It's quite an adventure, Alzheimer's. So again, I feel for you and your family going through that. But again, you have changed things for the better. And what is on the horizon? What is next? I know these are laws that have passed in Tennessee. Are there other states that you know of that are following these laws?
Yes. I'll let Travis tell you about this. We went to Maryland, Michigan, and literally with the Kasem Cares Foundation, there's been 17
different states.
17 states that have passed the laws. And we've got quite a few more. And literally there was one of the things which Carrie Kasem was able to get in to see her father, Casey Kasem, was from the federal law. And see, there's a federal law. So we went we went to Washington, D.C. as well with Kasem Cares Foundation. It was Carrie Kasem, myself, Travis, Troy Martin, which was the lawyer that was writing the bills with Carrie Kasem, and Kelly Rooney, which her father is Mickey Rooney. So they went there and spoke with the senators and talked with them about changing some laws. But the biggest thing is just going from state to state. Arkansas was, a state which it got passed there as well. And it's just been a blessing. I want to tell you, when you join together with people, and when people hear the story, you start realizing you would not believe how many people I've had call me that said, "Hey, we can't get in to see." One lady, she couldn't get in to see her dad, and he happened to be in Tennessee. So I sent her over the bill, and then it was like the next day. And just, the joy and the gratification that you get from being able to help somebody, and all the long hours, everything that went into that bill, it pays off, and it just makes it feel really rewarding,
And like I was saying, like the recognition of Carrie's dad, Casey Kasem, Kelly's dad, Kelly Rooney, Mickey Rooney, and then my dad, Glen Campbell. It's neat because sure, those people are famous, but with the Kasem Cares organization, we go around and we try to pass these laws, like I said, that'll help people that we've never met before, and that's the neatest part about it.
Yeah, it's a legacy that your entire family is leaving for everyone for the future. So
I have talked to Senator Crow today. Mm-hmm. Him and I had talked about, your podcast and everything. And he had, because I kind of went over with him Venetia's story.
Yes.
And of course, I'd become good friends with Senator Crow over the last, since the bills passed, because we worked side by side in doing this. But just seeing all of the other bills pass and then seeing the people that it's helping, I just can't even tell you. When Senator Crow and I was talking about Venetia today, it was like, hey, you have to look up to 2017 financial exploitation. And I sent you the list. There's been so many that have been passed. I mean, sometimes my memory gets a little foggy. So, and I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, you're absolutely right. And I don't know if you read it, but it's a fantastic bill. It's amazing.
I still can't believe that Casey Kasem. That was nuts.
I think it's Sweden.
Oh,
Finland. It might be Finland.
It's a long ways away.
Somewhere across the pond. Yeah.
It's long. Yeah. Oh. And you know what? And Carrie has literally, her dad had never been there. And so what was the point of doing that? Yeah. And I want to tell you, I will tell you this, the kindness, just being kind to somebody. And when you think about it, with Carrie's case, had she been being a kind person and wanting to be nice, you wouldn't take the body of somebody's father over to a country where he had never been before and bury him. I think maybe you need to interview Carrie too.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to call right now.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I just can't imagine.
Carrie came to Nashville and went to court with us on the Glen Campbell case. She went to court with us, and then she brought her film crew. And our whole Kasem Cares team showed up and was there to support us in court. The places that we've traveled to, usually Kelly Rooney flies in. There's Carrie, and then Travis and myself. So Kathleen Braun, that happened to her. Her father was a famous author and painter. And when we go to these states, they have, Travis and Kelly and Carrie testify before the Senate, and usually the laws pass. Hey, I told you, you guys already have that in the episode, and you've seen the video of what happened with our law in Tennessee, and we got Tanya Tucker to come in.
Yes.
And, all of this was just something that, again, who would ever think you would have to pass a law for something so simple as to see your parent? Oh, and Senator Crow, literally, oh my goodness, he's just become such a good friend of us, because I'm telling you, until that bill passed, that bill was a saving grace. That bill, I remember Debbie calling me and she's like, Trudy, when's the bill going to pass? What are you doing? When's it? I said, listen, I'm working with Senator Crow. They're working as fast as they can. And she says, who is it that's like objecting to it? Who would ever object to an elder abuse bill where somebody could just see their parent? Come to find out, it was Kim's lawyer. I mean, Kim's lawyer objecting
who testified at the hearing as an expert witness from the Tennessee Bar Association. She never told them that she was.
I remember you guys mentioning that. Yeah, that's correct.
So we had that, and literally, if you could put a link to those bills. And when you ask about what else do we have, we've got some other bills that are coming up in Tennessee. One of the big ones is just educating people on how they can recognize financial exploitation in an elder or somebody who's disabled. Because usually if they have a lot of money and all of a sudden all their money is gone and somebody else is profiting from it, and then they're put in a situation where they can't pay their bills, somebody needs to recognize that fact and help them. So that's the kind of bills that we're putting into place.
Yeah, and when they have that music catalog.
Oh, sure.
The music catalog, that was a dead giveaway.
Yeah, see, with Venetia's
dad.
Yeah. But see, he wrote all of them. So that's the publishing aspect. That's where the big money is. See, with my dad, most of the royalties come from, they're called mechanical royalties, which is the singing. I mean, he wrote a few of the songs, but he didn't have the publishing rights to Jimmy Webb.
But you want to back up. In Billie Jean's things, as I started looking, and we hired a forensic accountant to look at things. Anyway, when you talk about the publishing rights, but when somebody, even if they've passed away, some of the bills that we're passing has been because the senators had looked at what happened with Billie Jean and how all of her assets, they went away. When you think about, and Joe had talked about this, when you think about the publishing, and that all being owned over by Glen Campbell Music, then all of a sudden it's all gone and thousands of songs are put into a shell company. And it's the same thing. But when I told Venetia, when she was showing me all of these things, the publishing was what stood out to me. And when you write something, that's your baby. And you just think back, how would they have responded if they was 45 years old and their mind was real clear? Would they go give their house away? Would they go give their publishing rights away? Chances are no, they won't.
Yeah, they're going to hold on to that.
There's got to be laws put in place to prosecute people that do that.
You see a lot of these big artists like the Stones and stuff that are selling their catalogs, but they're at the
$100 million,
and they're making $1 billion or $10 billion.
Yeah, they know they're not going to outlive their money at that point.
Yes.
Although I think Justin Bieber did it too.
Yeah, but I think he's trying to get out of the music business.
Yeah,
though.
True.
And see, that's the difference when you figure up how much that they're selling these for. Who would give them away? Gift them to, a sister-in-law, or, that's because they're selling them so that that'll create them financial future, and freedom. I mean, and this wasn't benefiting. So it makes perfect sense. Hey, what's going on? Who took that from this elderly person and didn't pay them $100 million, or even pay them $1,000,
Yeah, that it's something. And I mean, with what you've gone through, I mean, the regular person, I mean, this is helping them so much. It's a big eye opener when we hear about what happens with famous people. And then when we look at ourselves as, just regular people, you help us in trying to figure out how we move forward with, wills and family trusts.
And, they say it's kind of funny because I'd heard Elvis Presley, I'd seen a video of him saying, all of this is but for a day, which that is true. And money makes people do crazy things. And, we can't take it with us when we go.
Nope.
Seriously. And, we all think we're owning things, but we're really just renters here. And that's one of the things which in life, I felt like the best thing that we could do is, change some laws and try to help people and putting these laws into effect to make their life better. If you see somebody that's struggling, you want to help them. If you see somebody that's a victim of something that you have been through, you want to try to help them because, you just don't know until you've walked a mile in somebody else's shoes or you've been there. And people can talk about things and you can hear their stories. But if you think about it, there isn't enough lifetime to make all the mistakes in the world. So you got to listen to somebody else's, and unfortunately, the school of hard knocks is the best teacher and the most expensive.
Yes, but Trudy, Travis, you all have helped so many people from here on out. So we thank you so much for your time and, hanging out with us today. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. You've been a blessing, and I really appreciate you getting the word out.
You've been listening to another episode of Life's Third Act. So we appreciate you joining us, and we hope you'll do so again next time. We hope you enjoyed Life's Third Act, sponsored by Cordell & Cordell, your advisors for estate planning and beyond. Subscribe and join us weekly for thought-provoking discussion and topics exclusively focused on estate planning and your financial future. Discover more at CordellCordell.com. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements.